simplicity, results. The other thing that I notice is you have to like your trainer. Because from a trainer's perspective, I watch other dog trainers on YouTube. I learned a lot from other dog trainers on YouTube. And I've been in the situation, I'm sure all of us have, where you can watch the same like content, how to work, front to heel with food, how to work place command with e-collar, how to work whatever. It's the same like lesson from different people. And they're doing all the same stuff, saying a lot of the same stuff, but one of them just vibes with you. So that's the one you benefit from. And what I noticed and what I pointed out to like newer trainers in the past who may listen to this is some of my personal favorite content like 5 or 6 years ago, production wise sucked. And we would laugh about it. Was Sean, it was the good dog. His persona and everything is so good. But like the editing and all that was not that great. But it didn't matter. They just put it out anyway. And the funny thing is the good Drew asked. And he attributes it to that. He was like, yeah, we got our start here. And then we got into blogging. And then we got into the books. And then we got into the seminars and T3 and all that stuff. But
you're talking about Sean and Jeff. Yeah, you know what? I have some stuff to say about them too, which a lot of times they don't get credited enough for. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good, man. No, I was just making the point that like Sean's early videos for the good dog, obviously the content was there. And obviously Sean has a way about him on camera. But the editing, the video quality, the audio quality, like none of that was like good. And it doesn't matter. And I say that because obviously, like we talked about in the very beginning, I think we weren't even live yet. It's important to make good quality stuff. We were talking about the whole audio and video setup and everything else. Do it if you can. But if you really can't, just put out something. Otherwise, you're going to end up being the best dog trainer that no one's ever heard of.
Well, you're waiting. Oh, what's that saying? It's like something. Oh, I'm going to totally butcher this. Like perfect or something is better than perfect if perfect ain't done. Or
right.
I forget how to word it, but yeah, that's so true. But
anything is better than perfect if perfect isn't done.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you. Sean has a gift with words.
Yes, agreed.
He really, really does. And I know like recently, sometimes those two guys get a lot of heat, but at the end of the day, they're one of the few people that as they were learning and they were still helping, they broke ground.
They broke ground.
Absolutely.
I think that's what really bothers a lot of people. It's like the nerve of them. They haven't been in the game for this long, or they're still making mistakes. And listen, this is the reality. Everyone is going to do it and everyone's going to strive to get better. And is everyone perfect? No. But if you were genuinely in the business to help, there's no way in hell, like could some of their techniques or my techniques or anybody's techniques be better than what it is? Absolutely.
Right.
But if it's still helping people, like there's no way that they're hurting more people than they're helping.
Correct. Right.
You see what I mean? So like
I absolutely.
That's still okay in my book. One thing that they don't get enough credit for, and I was actually talking with Tyler about this, because Tyler and I, well, COVID kind of put a damper in this, but Tyler and I teach seminars. In fact, I'm fortunate enough to be the only person that he teaches seminars with anymore.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So like he made a decision, I'm not doing it anymore. Like our understanding.
That's Blake.
That's the only thing we're going to do it. So like that's huge. He really took me under his wing and I've learned a lot and I owe him a lot. He's a really good friend of mine.
Right.
But what Sean and Jeff don't get enough credit for is actually speaking openly about the tools of remote collars before it was popular. Is there improvements? Are there things that like as I learned, I also went to T3. And what I will say is from a business perspective and like, you know, self-worth and like being, feeling good enough and having the right mindset to put yourself out there and do that stuff. It was one of the best courses I've taken. I'm sure their training is different now than what it was then. Are there things that I go, oh, I've also learned that this was good. I would change this. I would do that. Yeah, but same thing with myself and anybody else. Same thing with Cesar Milan. Like, I think that guy is gifted. I think he's instinctually like on another level. And I know him personally. I've met him. I've seen him do incredible stuff in front of my eyes. I think for the longest time, especially with TV, his flaw was that he needed to be the magic man. So he would jump into things and do it. And he could do it because he knew what he was doing, but it didn't necessarily translate into the everyday owner to try to replicate or be him. And that's where the problem came. But that was also what we did for television. You know what I mean? Is
Yep.
he better now than what he was
and
before?
that inspired, you know, and that's the one thing we all talk about is that, you know, Cesar Millan inspired pretty much this generation of dog trainer. Like I was 15, 16, 17 years old watching every single episode.
You hate him or love him, but that dude, man.
I mean, and I would say, you know, I think from a dog trainer standpoint, like I'm not sure how much hate he gets, because at some point, as Tyler said, we all owe our careers.
We all owe our careers to Cesar Millan.
You know, in a way where the dog training industry was going from, you know, it's all the dog's fault to no, it's your fault.
And it's actually the owner's fault. Right. I was going to point that out.
Things. It becomes so standard. You're like, wow, this guy really did pay this way. This guy really did that way.
Yes,
and then they get so big.
Yeah. And
they get big enough to the point where people hate and people critique and then you get the cancel culture and you get all this, and it's just it's tough.
Well, you know, sorry, go ahead.
No worries, man. Sorry, you go ahead, because I was going to shift back to Sean and Jeff for a second.
Yeah, well, so I was just gonna say, like, so yeah, like obviously, yes, he gets caught up in having to be the magic man and having to do all these things, and you know, like there's shows that just came out recently. We won't say names, but you know, it's like you see sometimes that same formula, like trying to be the magic man, and it's not. And me personally, I don't feel that it's helping the industry.
It's hard though, because TV and what they try to produce does it.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. With and that show that came out.
Yeah.
Recently, and I have to double check. I have to reach out to my guy. I had flown out to California with my wife a couple of years ago. I think it was like 2019 or whatever. It might have been 2019. We were filming a pilot. It was going to go to Animal Planet. It was going to go to Nat Geo. And then we were talking about Netflix. And then like something else had gotten greenlit, or they were talking about it. And it was actually so like that didn't go. But the problem is, when you know you're helping and you're doing something, it's how do you send this message, and how do you do it where you can still be entertaining, where some dog training is boring, but you can also sell, and then the producers and the people that are doing it are going, no, but it needs to look like this.
Who have nothing, who have no clue.
Nothing.
And that's the interesting thing. It's almost as if, you know, like it's funny. It's like where the mentality of dog owners is maybe about 5 years, 10 years behind that of dog trainers, I would say. And I don't know the exact number, but it's like, you know, you tend to see that. I was reading a book called Spiral Dynamics. You know anything about spiral dynamics? And it was just talking about the evolution of consciousness and how your life circumstances affects the way that you think about things. Right. So it talked about, you know, like once upon a time, we were all animals and animalistic, and we were driven just like dogs by our instinct. Then it talked about tribalism, where, you know, we tried to find meaning in the sun and the moon and the earth, and we try to understand like how things are correlated. And then it talked about like the Viking mentality, which is the dominance will survive, and how we will pillage and take what we need because the strongest survives. And then there's a mentality that is the complete pendulum swing, which is like, why don't we all just get along, and why don't we all just, you know, why don't we follow the superior being, whatever the superior being is? And then the pendulum swings. Well, what about innovation? And what about the Renaissance? And what about the Enlightenment? And it just talks about the evolution of human thought and the psychology behind it. And it's really awesome because, you know, it helps me look at the dog training world in a very different way. How there are some dog trainers that, and mind you, and the system doesn't say that one mentality is better than the other. It's just brought to you by life experiences, right? How, you know, there are tribes in Africa today that still believe in the sun god and the moon god and the earth and our brother and sister wolf and all that stuff. And then there are people who are like, you know, it's all about science and it's all detached and there's no oneness and all that stuff, right? But it's just interesting because our clients who we're trying to educate and help are behind our industry in a way, at least in my opinion. You know,
I agree 100%.
Yeah, like, so like what you guys are talking about at the IACP, what we're talking about as dog trainers, like this is the Dog Trainers podcast, not the Dog Owners podcast. Maybe we should start a different one and talk about those issues. But it's interesting. And so like, how do we get, maybe this is just a thought, not necessarily a question, but like, how do we get them to align?
Yeah, we speed them up. Well, I think that part of the answer goes but goes to what type of content. Like Sean and Jeff, you know, hate them or love them, perfect, imperfect, whatever. They show it all. And I feel like Sean O'Shea and Jeff Gelman and the whole T3 setup has gotten more people into dog training going through T3 and starting out a new career as dog trainers than other programs who are like people who are already dog trainers who just want to get better. Like they've made it like they've cast a really wide net. Everybody I meet here in Arizona, you know, when we throw adoption events and stuff like that, you know, everybody I meet so far who is now a dog trainer went to T3 or knows about T3 and really wants to go to T3 and stuff like that, you know. So I agree with you that they deserve that credit. And I agree with you that the credit that they deserve is just putting it out there and being willing to learn. And I also wanted to add, you know, on their behalf, like, that's another reason why for newer trainers who are considering making content, whatever that looks like for us, the podcast, you know, at one point it was just episode 1, and episode 1 sucks, by the way, if anybody listens to it, but you got to start somewhere. And you know what? I'm glad that it is what it is. It's short. It's probably boring. The audio probably sucks, but it's fun because you are a part of the journey. Like Joe Rogan's original episodes were boring and they weren't all 2 hours long. And he didn't have amazing guests. And he was just that guy from Fear Factor. But you feel a part of the process because you're like, man, I can see the growth.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes you, it invigorates you because you're like, you're there, you're one of us, you know? And I think the other thing that they deserve a lot of credit for is, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a few years ago or so, they went and spoke with like whatever the term, like Parliament in like Wales or something, about lifting the ban on like remote call. Like they were doing some real serious stuff, you know? Yeah. So maybe they're training.
Tyler did some work on that too. Yeah.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Tyler,
you know?
Well, yeah, Tyler did a lot of that, ISCP and being president and all of that. I think the other thing is that's something they've done, and that they get shit on a lot because it's different fields, but part of it is all evolution. Right. Evolution and growth, and like every piece and every part helped
the next one
evolution to get us to a place where even with this podcast, you guys are going to be what you think are big name trainers now are not going to be, and then it's going to be, we're going to be primitive if we aren't already, and with people that are names, or let's say Sean and Jeff, that, you know, have people that are newer who are responsible for all these trainers, that comes with additional responsibility of like, shit, we have to make improvements and we have to change things that we've done that we didn't know then that we know now. And you can only hope that anybody would aspire to do that and make their changes, whether it's them, whether it's me, whether it's this, like, it doesn't matter. You're always understanding that the more you're in front of an audience, the more you are responsible for things. So that's, it just comes with the territory, and I think it's important to mention.
I also kind of wanted to answer Brent's question about like, how do we help speed the learning curve?
It's got to be content, right? But yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
Right. Well, I was going to say content, but I was going to say this. Last time, Brent, I'm sorry. The thing about the thing about jiu-jitsu. Why do jiu-jitsu players get so damn good? Because they test their mettle against other guys. That's what competitions are for. That's what rolling is for. That's what going to different schools is for. Other than jiu-jitsu, I've been doing jiu-jitsu like a while, but I'm much more versed in stand-up. I've been boxing for a long time. I grew up in it. I competed in it when I was younger. And we used to travel gyms getting ready for fights. You know, from Fresno, California down to Baja. If the fighter fits the criteria for what we're looking for, a great counterpuncher, a lefty, or whatever, you know, all the trainers, all the gym owners, they were friends and they all knew each other and they were willing to mix it up. Dog training is so individual. There needs to be some sort of way for us to like mix things up. Content is one, like just like this is one of them, like having conversations, but this is just a conversation. Brent came up with an awesome idea that, you know, I'll let him explain, but essentially it's we need to just get together more and like mix it up more, do some training together.
And I think that's the biggest thing, because the problem with as we learn more and we attend different seminars or listen to different podcasts, is you learn, oh man, there's more to this. And you start becoming aware of certain names. Like, you know, like there's these guys like over in Australia, like Pat Stewart and like Glenn Cook. And then there's this guy like Ivan that people are talking about. There's this guy, Mike Ellis, and there's like all these things, and you start learning about it. The goal is to learn. And Jay Jack, I got to shout out to
Jay Jack. Yep.
That guy's, I mean, I'm actually going to be spending some time with him later on this year. I'm going over to him.
Jay Jack, Joel.
Train dogs and roll jiu-jitsu. Then Nelson Hodges, I'm spending more time with him. COVID put a damper in all of those. And a lot of things. But as you learn from this, for me, The thing that I would advise people to stay away from is the negative, toxic energy that comes with learning more or knowing a little bit more or knowing something different than what someone else does, because that becomes almost cult-like.
Yeah.
And that gets scary.
Yeah, stop looking for the messiah of training.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Because some people will now they become a part of, we just attended this or we do this, and now we know this. So as long as you're learning from it all, but you're keeping the mindset and you're staying like away from that, and your
be a scholar. Be a scholar.
Continue to help, continue to educate, and continue to share without trying to take credit or trying to be the one that's invented the wheel and stuff, which some people in a weird way are.
Right.
You're gonna be fine, but you just got to be careful, because as you learn, that environment is there and it's toxic and it's scary for a lot of new people. So continue to learn, continue to try to get better, but then continue to just try to help and still be a nerd about this. Like don't get caught up in like the ego. That the ego in dog training is just is out of this world.
Isn't it crazy? Don't you notice that it's a little different these days? The younger dog trainers don't seem to be the same.
It's bad. I try to stay away from all that, but at the same time, I want to learn from it all. But I want to stay away from all that. It's tough.
Am I wrong, or do you feel like the tides are shifting a little bit?
For what, ego?
For ego in dog trainers, younger dog trainers that you see like online.
With dog trainers, I think it's more friendly because they're newer and they're eager to learn. And also we have social media. So you're either posting on social media and you're sharing. Because here's the thing. If I'm doing something unique, whether it's unique or not, I probably didn't invent it, but I might be wording it differently, explaining it differently.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's more along the lines of where we're going to be with most situations. But if I'm putting it on social media, it's not about me getting credit or you needing to tag me or doing anything. Like that's there. You want to mention it. And if you're doing it, you're probably going to do it different than I am. So I might not want the credit, or, it's just, I think younger trainers are eager for more knowledge, and because people are posting more, it's more accessible than it ever has.
Right.
Before. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's also accelerating the learning process, which is the same thing for, here you go, Brent, jiu-jitsu.
Oh, God damn it
again. It really is. There's some people now who are doing things because they have access to this content that we didn't have before. And the same thing could be said for dog training. But at the same token, sometimes you're learning so much that you're not able to get your hands dirty.
Right.
To learn, or you spend time attending seminar, and not applying something.
Yeah, seminar-itis. Yeah.
That's what.
Seminar-itis. And from each seminar, you get so caught up in one way that you were talking about before, you forget what is you. So you try to do everything the same, and then you mess up, and then you extract a little bit from it. Then you try to do everything exactly this way, and you're good with it, but it takes you away from like, oh, how do I articulate this to them, or how do I address these issues? So it's just, oh man, I could talk about this stuff forever.